Hello and welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen of the 128th District in Berks and Lancaster counties. Serving as your representative in Harrisburg affords me the opportunity to meet many special people. But there will always be a special place in my heart for our veterans. I recently sponsored a resolution commemorating the 70th anniversary of the Japanese surrender aboard the USS Missouri, which marked the end of World War II. I was honored to invite local World War II veterans to the House floor to mark the occasion. When we hear about the Battle of the Bulge and the Normandy invasion, it's important to remember that for a little while longer, we can do more than just read about them in a history book. We still have living connections to these famous events. Join me now and listen as Everett Keffer shares stories of military service and its contributions to history. Everett, we're delighted to have you here. You said you're in the Navy. How did you get in the Navy? When did you get in the Navy?
I got in the Navy after I graduated from high school, March the 5th of 1943. And I got discharged of December the 22nd of 1945.
Could you tell us something about your training in the Navy? What exactly prepped you to be on a surface ship?
I was to catch a ship out of Key West, Florida. That's how I got into aboard the ship. But I was right out of boot camp. After boot camp, I went to Key West, Florida, and the ship was just coming in from dry docks. It was a brand new ship, and I was put aboard that ship. To me, it looked like Donald Duck's Navy, because it was only 120 feet long. And we could only draft water from the stern of 7 feet. And the reason that was for, that the submarines couldn't sink us, but we could sink submarines, German submarines. We had got some submarines. We got one off of North Carolina, and we got one going from Bermuda to England. And that submarine was, we run charges over them, these 500 like bombs. We run off the stern of our ship, dropped them, set them for 500 feet. We blew that submarine completely out of the water, and the submarine dove again, and as it dove, we run across it again and dropped some more depth charges and blew that submarine completely up into the air. It came down and sat on the surface, and the hatch opened up. We were going to machine gun every German that came out of that submarine. There's one guy got off, and the sub dove back down again. We picked that guy up. Here he was, a captain, an American captain on a German submarine. And the reason he was laying for us is because he knew what ports we came out of and what ports we go into. So we picked him up, and he's the only guy, but he said that we had got sunk on the first time we dropped the charges. So the captain and the officers of our ship questioned him, and that's how we found out that he was an American captain on a German submarine.
Eventually, that ship went to England, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's right.
And you were beginning to assemble the D-Day landing force. What was your training and preparation for D-Day?
Well, we went on maneuvers off of Plymouth, England, for that training. And we had all these escorts, and all these tankers out, and the battleships and everything, cruisers, destroyers, out in the English Channel. And we escorted them. And from there we went over into France, off the shores of France.
Did you know how big this was going to be based on your training? You knew your role, but did you sense the totality of thousands of ships being involved in this?
Yeah, there was thousands of ships, and our chances of getting out of this was 1 out of 10. And if we would have got out of it, we would have been sent over to Japan. Mm-hmm. And we were tried to go into Japan. But they got us before we get any further than that.
Now, there was obviously a veil of secrecy over the D-Day invasion. Were you told what you could communicate, who you could write to, what you could say? Or was there kind of a veil of silence over the totality of the mission for individual members of the Navy? Did you see the big picture of what was going to happen here?
Well, we were the last ship coming out of Plymouth, England. And when we got out to English Channel, we saw all these ships. We did not know that this is going to be an invasion at that time. So our captain of our ship got us all together on the top deck, and he says, "This is it." And the reason I'm telling you this now, because you are not going back to shore no more. See, they were afraid if they would have told us while we were in Plymouth, England, we would have jumped ship. I don't think I would have, but some of the guys would have. And that's one of the reasons they kept it a secret until we got out into the English Channel and we saw what was happening out there.
Well, you were on English soil, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. What was the mood in England? It's 1944. The Nazis had pummeled the Battle of Britain a few years earlier. Upbeat, we're on the cusp of turning the tide, uncertainty. What atmosphere did you detect in England at the time?
Well, the English people were very nice to us. They treated us like kings. We didn't have any trouble. I mean, they helped us out. But
the average person on the street, they treated you well?
Yeah, everybody treated us well. Mm-hmm. But I was out on leave that day that this was going to happen. And I was with 2 fellows off of a ship tied up to us, and I was the only one off of our ship. And I wanted to get back to the ship, my ship, because it was getting dark. So I waited for these 2 other fellas off of the ship tied aside of it. And here there was another guy with him. And he was telling us then, as a group, what's going to happen. He says, you're going to be getting into the invasion, going into France. And he was trying to scare us. So we went back, and when we got aboard ship, we went back and we told the captain about this. So they tried to get a hold of this guy again, but he was gone. But he was the guy that was trying to scare that we wouldn't go into France. And but they got him, and later on they got a hold of him. They got him. They locked him up, the way I was told.
What was the first thought that went through your mind? You're invading France. The Nazis are sitting there with shore batteries. They're prepared for you. They have a welcoming committee, if you will. Did you anticipate all of what you were going to face when you came close to shore?
No, I felt that my feelings were that I was safe. I figured the United States government's going to take care of me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have no fear. In fact, we were all laughing about this as we were proceeding to go out 4 miles when we were out there. As we were going, we were laughing and joking all about this, but we weren't scared about it because we knew that we were going to have to do this.
Right. History tells us that Eisenhower had two speeches. One remained crumpled up in his pocket, accepting the responsibility for failure for D-Day, and the other one, of course, he shared with the world community about the success of D-Day. From what I'm hearing, you didn't have the sense of failure as being a possibility here.
I don't remember that we had a failure. I guess it's because of the feelings we had, because we were joying about this. We were laughing and having a good time. So we didn't have them kind of bad feelings about it, you know. But I met Eisenhower. You talked about Eisenhower. MacArthur, I met him. President Roosevelt, I met him. I was in the White House with Roosevelt and Eleanor. So that's when I was in the hospital out in Bethesda, Maryland. They used to take us to the White House, and that's how we met all these dignitaries. But I saw all them generals come back. In fact, I have pictures at home of these generals as they were coming into Washington.
We'll catch up with the hospital part of the story, but it's intrigued me enough. What was your proximity to each of those figures? You mentioned Eisenhower, MacArthur, the president, and his wife. And give us a snippet of reaction, maybe on your part, to engaging these world figures.
Well, I felt real nice about it because you don't often get a chance to meet these fellas, these admirals, Eisenhower and President Roosevelt. But I did, and I felt real good about it, you know, that I had a chance to meet these generals.
Said hi, shook hands, in a group. What was the setting?
Well, we were in wheelchairs.
Okay.
And they took us to these places, these events, by ambulance and to the wheelchair, as we were in the wheelchairs.
So it was a tremendous honor, and they were recognizing you because your body had been broken serving your country.
That is right. That is truly right. They did recognize us because they tried to do everything possible to ease our minds for what we are going through.
The Armada is moving toward the beaches at Normandy, Utah. I think you mentioned to me before. Take us into the sights, the sounds, the smells of the approach to Utah.
Well, as we were going into Utah, we saw a lot of planes in the sky. A lot of them got hit, and we saw them dive down into the ocean. And we knew where we were going to go. We knew we were going to go closer into shore than where we were. But
did the mentality or the atmosphere on the ship change a little bit when your crewmates saw planes going down into the ocean that had been shot down?
No, no, it didn't change. Nothing changed. We just felt that the government's taking care of us, you know, and they aren't after us. We're after them. So we didn't have that kind of a feeling. We had more of a joyous feeling because we were laughing and joking about this.
At some point, shore batteries begin to open up on the ships. Now, does the mood change?
Well, when they I saw one of the shells miss the stern, but it didn't change my mood. I figured that they're trying to hit us, but so far they don't have the range. But when we rated to, like I said before, to the captain about this shell, he saw one miss the bow, and that's when he turned the ship to get these 17 LCIs to zigzag with us, but he caught us broadside, so then those 17 LCIs didn't know what to do.
Does the landing craft, are you referring to LCIs?
Yes.
Okay. And they carried with them landing parties, troops that were going to land on the shore.
That's right, and machinery,
All
tanks
right.
and stuff.
Now, are you returning fire from your ship?
No, we put all our guns on silent. Weren't going to use our guns. I think the reason for that was so they didn't know where we were firing from. If we would have fired, they would have knew where we were.
What time of day is it when this is taking place?
This was still dark.
In the early AM hours?
Yes.
All right. And apparently they have your range, and eventually they found their mark. Were they spotlighting, illuminating, guessing, lucky shot? How's this happening? It's dark out.
Well, what they done, they dropped bombs that lit up the ocean, the channel, and that's how they got the range on us. And when it was still dark when they done this. If it was daylight, I don't think it would have happened this way.
All right, let's get to the signature moment here. PC 1261, the morning of D-Day, and the shells stop missing, and one finds its mark. Where were you? What happened next when your ship was hit?
Well, I was right with the gun turret. There was 3 guys in the gun turret, and one guy shoved the shells down into the magazine. And I was right outside of that with a radio man. He had earphones on to let the captain and the officers up aboard front in the front of the ship to let them know what's going on back here. And we radioed to them. But I was just, what would have happened to me, I would have had it going down into the hole to pass up the ammunition, the shells. And these are 40 millimeters. And then hand them to the guy above me, which he put him into the magazines. But that was my job aboard there, to go down to the hole. But I didn't get down there. If I would have got down there, I wouldn't be sitting here, because it went right through that part of the ship. It missed the engine room, but it went in back of that, and I would have been right above that. Well, that's what threw me off, sent me through the air.
The shell hits, is the explosion nearly instantaneous?
That's right, yeah.
And you were thrown into the English Channel.
Yes.
And you're in the water. What do you see next?
In the water, I see these 17 LCIs. They were flat-bottom ships. I saw them getting hit, and I didn't see one of them that survived that. 17 of them, I didn't see one of them survive. That's what I saw when I was in the water.
What are you hearing at this time?
What am I hearing?
Cries, gunfire, the sound of water. What's happening around you?
Well, the gunfire, you heard the shells coming out from the shore batteries, and as they missed, they cracked or either hit the water and splashed the water.
You don't have a life jacket on, or it was blown off. How do you survive being in the water? I think you described earlier as several hours. You clung to a deceased comrade who had a life jacket on?
Yeah, he was one of the fellows over one of these LCIs, and well, he's the one that saved my life, you know. But I saw this thing floating by, this body with this life jacket. That's what I grabbed a hold of him, and held on to him. And till they come around and picked me up 2.5 hours later.
The day that picked you up are other United States naval personnel.
What was this?
PT, somebody picked you up. It was a Navy boat that came around?
Yeah, the Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
That was their job, to go around and pick up any of the people, the guys in the water, if they're alive. Then they didn't pick up a dead body, only ones that are alive. And when they picked me up, and they put me right with some guys that already died after they picked up, and being I was in such bad shape, they figured I'm going to die too. So they had me with the dead guys. And they keep them on until the ship gets back in the shore someplace. But they thought I wouldn't make that, so. But I fooled them, I made it.
At what point did you say, "Excuse me, I'm still breathing over here"? Did you give them a signal, or did they just say, "Oh, well, he actually had made it"?
Well, when they picked me up, and the Coast Guard picked me up, they took us out to the transport area. And when your ship gets sunk, they try to keep all your crew together.
Mm-hmm.
But when they got me aboard this transport ship, down below deck, I look over in the corner. There I see a big group of our fellows off our ship. And that's what you just said. That's what I said to them. Look, I'm here, and I'm going back to the United States.
I'm sure.
And they were the ones that thought I wouldn't make it.
Well, the group of you are having this mini reunion. You all realize that your ship has been sunk. That sounds like a very somber moment, realizing that some of the people you had trained with, lived with, and shared the ship with went down with that ship.
That's right. It was midships. There was a farmer's mate who was come western from Scranton, and he was standing up against the stack, and there was 2 ship fitters standing aside of him, and both of them were killed right out, and the farmer's mate in between them 2 guys wasn't even hurt, wasn't scratched.
A sad gathering, if you will, realizing you've lost friends.
That's right. I lost the 2 ship fitters there, plus the guys out of the gun turret. I lost them. They were friends, and that was the one I said went down with a ship off the stern. So
the ship then takes you to England.
Yep.
And you're back in London.
Yep.
You're in a hospital in London. How long did that last, and what was that like?
That lasted about a month in England. I was in a ward over there in England all by myself because everything else is filled up. But they were supposed to take care of you, but they weren't taking care of me. And I used to ask for food, you know. I wanted to eat something because I was hungry. And they ignored me. And they were English people. Now, they just thought I was going to die and they weren't going to give me nothing. But I fooled them, too.
All right. A month elapses. You're headed back to the States on another ship. And what was that journey like? Was it a medical ship? You're still injured and you're going to still spend time in the hospital stateside. So how was that transition for you to get to the United States?
Well, when they picked, that was a hospital ship called the Refuge. And when they picked us up, and naturally there was a lot of soldiers on there, and they put us down below deck. I remember going down, them sliding me down the steps on my butt, you know, and there was bunks down there, and one Navy guy got aside of me in a bunk, and I got in a bunk, and Then they started to ask what we wanted to eat, you know. And I says, well, I'd like to have a gallon of ice cream. I said, we didn't have no ice cream anymore, so I like a gallon of ice cream. So this guy in the bunk next to me, him and I ate a gallon of ice cream.
And that was great therapy, I'm sure.
That was good therapy.
Your stateside, you shared with me before as we wrap up here that you spent a total of almost 2 years in the hospital. First family encounter, first family visit, who was it and what was that like?
Well, that was my parents. It was the first family when my parents knew that at that time that something happened to one of the boys, which was 3 of us, 2 in the Army and me in the Navy. And my mother said to my dad that something happened to one of the boys. Well, the first thing they saw was when I was in the Bethesda, Maryland hospital. And they saw that I was okay, but I was in bad shape. I was sitting there in a wheelchair and they came down to see me. And then there's, when the other family members knew that I was there, they came down to see me.
And they were overjoyed that you were back home, even though you were terribly injured. You aren't like some of your shipmates having gone down with the PC-1261. They're happy to touch you, hug you, and love on you.
Yeah, they were happy and they were joyed that they knew that I was going to be okay. I figured I'd be okay, and I told them I'll be all right. It's just going to take some time till this heals up everything, all these injuries I got.
The war's over in '45. August, Japanese surrender, signing of the unconditional surrender on the USS Missouri, September 2nd, 1945. Where were you at the close of the Second World War, and what was your reaction when you heard the news?
I was in Washington, D.C., across from the White House. And when we got that news, we celebrated. We had a wonderful time. I mean, the girls, we didn't know these girls. They were coming around, they were kissing all these girls, kissing those Navy guys, you know, because they were glad to see us come back, you know.
Well, we'll make sure Irene doesn't see this part of the taping, okay?
That's all right. She won't mind.
Well, you know, this is a tremendous story. It's one that should be shared, and you're certainly very deserving of the accolade that you received recently on the floor of the House of the Representatives in Pennsylvania. So we're delighted that you came to be with us. God bless you, and thank you for your service in the United States Navy during the Second World War.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here, and this is a great experience for me.
All right.
And when Irene sees it, she'll see that I enjoyed it.
No doubt you celebrated with 2 gallons of ice cream at the end of the Second World War,
yeah,
right?
right.
Well, this is a special story. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you.
All righty. That's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Mark Gillen. If you need assistance with any state matter, please feel free to contact me at my local office or through my website. The address and number will be shown in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for Legislative Report.